Welcome back guys, GTS Garage. Today we're going to look at the 30,000 mile service, but something subtly different. We are going to look at the dealer tool. So enough waffle, just let's crack on. Okay, so this is the dealer tool. It is that simple. It is just a diagnostic device with a USB that you plug into a system. Now when it first arrives, that is going to arrive in a jiffy bag with a piece of paper saying thank you for your purchase and a web address where you can download the latest version of the software. Now that is all you get, so let's hook it up to the bike. So before we do anything else, we have to install the software. So on that piece of paper saying thank you very much for buying it, you also get a download address. Now the download address I won't give on here because I don't know if that's what they want to do, but you download the latest copy. So it comes up with a download of the latest copy. It also comes with additional drivers that you might need to use. So this is the splash screen. You've started up the tool and basically you've got a lot of things along the top. So you've got ECU data, sensor values, throttle balance, check faults, test modes, ABS, instruments, options and help. Now the first thing you've got to do is actually register the application with your bike. So the first step is to actually take the tool and plug it into the computer. So with the red light shown on the top, you then go round and you plug the diagnostic connection into the dealer tool. So basically on the right hand side of the bike you take the battery cover off and you have access to the diagnostic connection which is there. So that is what we are going to plug in to the dealer tool. Just move that out of the way. So at this stage this is kind of where I had issues. Now Windows 10, the drivers for Windows 10 don't particularly work well with the dealer tool. And I understand Windows 7, 8 do, but Windows 10 particularly doesn't. So what dealer tool have done, they give you access to some previous drivers, some old drivers that do work with the dealer tool. Now I spent about 15 minutes just trying to get the dealer tool to work. It doesn't work particularly well for Surfaces. If you've got a Microsoft Surface, I couldn't get it to work with the Surface purely because I couldn't locate a port. Even with the old downloaded drivers, I was still unable to get that port to work. But with a normal laptop, it worked fine. So the first thing you need to do is you plug in the dealer tool and then you switch the ignition on. You have to switch the ignition on, you don't need to start the bike. So let's just switch the ignition on. We then go to ECU data at the top, so this is in the top left hand corner and you're presented with that screen. Let me just bring you in. I don't know if you can see that. Unfortunately enough, it's one of those where you just don't know how much you're picking up. And this is going to give you the ECU tune number, ECU serial number and the VIN number. Now you don't need to know any of that. All you need to do is read the ECU. So the first thing to do is press RECU. So see if that connects. If that doesn't, it says there is an error. So typical, isn't it? On screen there's an error. So I'm going to open up ports. COM port 3 is the one that it wants to do now. Perfect. So you saw how I had to change that. So I didn't know that part at the beginning, but I do now. Basically, you can change ports when you plug it in. It's probably because I've changed the USB port on the side. So if you can, keep the USB port on the same. So one of my USBs must be COM 4, one of them must be COM 3. Because I've moved it to COM 3, it gives me an error to say that it can't communicate. You go to options, choose COM 3, and you come down here now, and it says COM 3. So now I'm going to start again. Read ECU data. Again, does not seem to like to work. And it's typical. Isn't it typical? So what I'm going to actually do is come through there. Let's close this. Let's close the application. Let's put it in the other. Let's put it in the other USB port, which potentially is the one that I had to begin with. Let's go dealer tool again. Dealer tool installation in Vista. So it does give you a dealer tool. Right, so let's start the dealer tool, press OK. I see it's in COM point 3 now still, of course it is. It's into COM port 4, so click on COM port 4, press OK. So COM port 4 now shown instead of COM port 3 down the bottom, and we will try again. ECU, switch ignition on, kill switch and run, pushed. OK, let's just again, seems to be an error message, so let's start from the start. Okay, so potentially what's happened is that as part of an update, it's basically taken the old drivers and updated them. So this is potentially something that's going to have to be done again and again. Tell you what, the first thing we need to do is work out if we've got a 32-bit or a 64-bit service. So we're going to go down to the bottom here. We're going to right click. We're going to go up to System, Open System Properties, and it will tell you there if it is a 32, and I'm doing this one-handed, so apologies, bear with me, and it will tell you here what type of system it is. So hopefully you can see that is a 64-bit system. Okay, so with that knowledge, we then have downloaded the tools that they've asked you to. So because you're having issues with the main Windows 10 driver, they're going to give you alternative drivers to choose. Go into the folder, because you've downloaded it as zip, you've extracted it, and it's now into a folder called alternative USB driver. It's going to ask you to right click and then run as administrator. You then press yes, and that is going to go through and install. I'm going to repair, which means it's just going to put those back in. So we're now installing those alternative drivers. Now I know they are installed, but we're then going to do something else. So this should take a couple of seconds. Hopefully that's not going to take all that time. That's then going to install. Yes, I want to restart my computer now. It says you don't need to, so I'm going to say no at this point. Finish. Then going to go with that information 64-bit. Go into the 64-bit folder, right click and run as administrator again, because I know I've got, that's it. So that is now installed. Okay, so you know what they said about best laid plans and everything? That is exactly, the lighting is very odd in here, so let me just come round. It doesn't really improve over there. Still an ugly mug, which is why no one pays me to review anything. But we will get back to it. It's just a case of this shit happens. Every now and then it doesn't go as expected. So it's now started again. Let's go back. We've installed the drivers. So the next thing to do is go to the device manager. Okay, so strangely, if you can see that, I get 3, and that's that, unknown device mass controller. So if I open ports up, and I get an ECP printable LCP1, which is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now click on an unknown device, because that's probably it. Update driver. I'm then going to go search automatically for update driver, browse my computer for driver. So search. Hopefully you can see that, and that is not horribly out of focus. So it's going to search, and what I want to do is actually say let me choose my driver. Search update, could not find, do you know the manufacturer? So we're going to go back. And we're going to browse my computer, let me pick from a list of available drivers. And we want to go to, let's scroll down. Scroll down. Ports. Next. Communications port, EC, multiplayer. scroll down here on the manufacturer. I'm guessing all this, I'm going to be honest, I won't lie to you, this is all prolific. So click on that one, prolific USB, comms port version, serial connector, and we want the earlier version. So does that make sense? So basically we want to select the drivers, scroll down on the manufacturer until it says prolific, then come up and you want to choose the oldest drivers, which is 331. Okay, that was back in 2010. Click on that one and press next. Installing this, yes, and it has installed it successfully. Hopefully you can see that. That probably was the worst demonstration I could have possibly given, but does give you an idea. Perfect. So that now gives you a prolific USB comms port, COM port 1. Scan hardware changes. That's not solved anything. Phased out since, please contact your supplier. So that's strange. There we go, look at that. So contact changes, that's the one there. So what we're going to do is, because that one's suddenly shown up, phased out since 2012, we are going to right click, I'm not quite sure, update driver, browse the computer, let me pick serial port 10, that's the one, show compatible hardware, excellent, reply, and then press next. Windows has finished installing, so that was probably clear as mud and I apologise for that. Okay, so we're now going to plug the dealer tool back into the bike. If I can get round, can't actually swing a cat in this garage, but I'm going to take that, plug that now back into the diagnostic port. And then we're going to come back around because I get my steps in this way. We're going to reduce. Now if this doesn't work, I'm going to restart the computer because it did ask me to do that earlier. We're going to open up the dealer tool. We're going to accept the OK message. Right, third time lucky. We're now going to switch the engine, or we're going to switch the ignition on. We're not going to switch the engine on. It's communicating on COM port 3 down there. So let's see if we now get ECU data. Click on ECU data, click read ECU, connecting, and we have a connection. So finally we've got a connection. Okay, so we can actually get on with the video now. So let me take you off the tripod because that's probably going to be easier. You then see all the other lights along the top light up and become available. So we go to sensor values. We can go to sensor values. That opens up so we can actually see sensor page 1. So inject to ignition. So you can see all the options you get there. I'm not even going to pretend I know what all of these are, so I'm not going to work on them, not going to touch them. Closed throttle adapted, yes. You see all these? I've got no idea what these are, so I ain't going to use them. So I'm going to close that. Again, it's just making sure you can see everything. Let me pull you out slightly. That's pull you in. Right. So the next thing we're going to do, go to throttle balance, and you will start engine and allow to reach normal temperature. So I'm going to do that later on in another video where I'm not holding you, but that's just the throttle. Back to main menu. We then can go to check faults, and that'll go through reading ECU faults. Again, I think you're still pulled out a little bit. There you go. So it's now reading the faults. I don't know if that's in focus or not, so I apologise. You may actually be getting a lousy video, this one. So basically 0 fault codes, it'll read those and you're able to clear fault codes through there. Back to main page. We've then got test modes, and it's just communicating through the pump, cooling. You can actually just choose which test you want. initializing communications, and it will go through that. Screen up and down, reset and points, accessory, relay on off, headlamp on off, ride by wire motor, secondary air injection test, purge control valve, instrument panel, exhaust motor, cooling fan test and fuel pump. It does say ensure fingers and loose objects are clear. So I don't want to run any of those tests. You've got ABS, which gives you a nice warning, basically saying I accept. Is only to be bled and tested in competent, experienced persons. So this is how you bleed your front brakes using this tool. And I will probably give instructions because I will be using it later on, but I need to read up about that. It is in the manual. You must have a manual for this. And then you've got instruments. So that allows you to choose between MPH, KH, rewrite instruments. You can disable heated seats, enable heated seats, disable and enable heated grips, and disable TMS, enable TMS. You can rewrite instruments and you can set your service level. So that is the tool. Again, a lot of faffing to get it up and running, but once it's run, actually it's fairly good. So as you can see, there is a fair bit of faffing around to get that tool to work, but once you've got it, I'm going to say you've got it, but that's not true. There are times where you're going to have to redo that faffing around, especially if there's long brakes. So I had that set up to do the throttle sensors, or the throttle body sensors, and did that successfully. Took me about 15-20 minutes to get the tool set up, and then it worked perfectly. I was shocked to actually see that you had to do that again each time. It is what it is. Once you've done it a couple of times and you know what you're doing, actually that'll be a fairly simple process. But for the purpose of this video, it was quite nice because I was able to show you, rather than it just magically work and then try and explain what I had to do to get it to work, it all came on video. The thing I'm not sure about is, I hope that video, because at this point I don't know if that video turned out, I don't know what you can see, I don't know how in focus it is. It's very difficult to start taking pictures of video screens because sometimes they just don't turn out right, but hopefully this one has. I hope you guys found that useful. You take it easy, ride safe, good weather's here, so there'll be a lot more sports bikes on the road, but that's just the way it is. You take it easy, bye bye.